Hey guys, we're back with the Coffin Corner podcast. We're going to talk all stuff MLB today, kind of recapping the madness that happened this weekend. Ronan is on the show this week to talk some baseball with us, so yeah, let's get it started. So, AL reigns supreme again. What did you think of this one? It was an interesting game for me. There was a lot of. It was a little lackluster to me from past All-Star games, but again, it's just an All-Star game, so who cares? But what were your takeaways?
You know, I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really fun. I really liked the Major League All-Star Game, and I think we've talked about this off-air, but unlike the Pro Bowl, where they can't play defense, because you don't hit anybody, you don't want anybody to get hurt. NBA defense is kind of lacking in general, but certainly when you get the All-Star Game, it's 150 to 140 or whatever. At least in baseball, it's a ball game. The pitchers are out there throwing real pitches. What I liked about last night was it wasn't a 10-9 slugfest. There was some really good pitching, really good defense, and just some otherwise cool moments, like seeing CC Sabathia take the field one last time. And even it was really only out there just to get a standing ovation, but it was a cool gesture, I think, in the ninth inning. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was there's so much talent in baseball right now. And every team gets represented in the All-Star Game. It's much better that the All-Star Game is an exhibition. Like you were saying, it doesn't affect the World Series or anything anymore. And I just thought it was a really, really nice night. It looked like a perfect night in Cleveland. And other than some things with the broadcast, which irritated me pretty good, I thought the game was pretty entertaining. Yeah, well,
it was a close game, right? So, that was fun to watch. Obviously, the hometown guy, Charlie Blackmon, hits a home run.
Yeah.
The only thing and it kind of spoiled it for me too, because every year when they give out that MVP award, you get a free truck or something. Like, it's more fun to watch than most MVPs, I guess, because they get something. But for Shane Bieber to win it, for me, was kind of weird.
Sure.
Like, they picked him because he's from Cleveland,
I
think. And I look at the stat, it was like I think he just struck out the side.
Yeah.
Right? But Joey Gallo should have won that MVP award, I think. First of all, obviously picking the Cleveland guy, I get that. But a lot more people know who Joey Gallo is across the country than Shane Bieber. And I think, Joey Gallo won the game with a home run, didn't he? Right? That was the...
I mean, it ended up at...
It was a single-run home run. So I think Joey Gallo should have won it. Other than that, I mean, it's always fun to watch the mic'd-up guys and whoever else is there or whatever. I liked watching Charlie Blackmon. That was kind of fun in the outfield talking and stuff. But I'm ready to get back to baseball for sure.
Totally. You mentioned the microphones and the players. It's so cool to see whether it's Freddie Freeman during an at-bat. He's got the headpiece in. Just because you don't get that, obviously, during the regular season. You don't want that really during the regular season either. But it's just a cool insight. And I enjoyed it for the most part, but then you get a point where you've got Charlie Blackmon, certainly one of the most recognizable players in the National League West, one of the faces of the franchise here in Denver. Joe Buck's on the microphone, and the very first question you ask the guy is, when are you going to be done?
Yeah.
He just signed a huge contract extension. He's in the All-Star game. He has the big home run to pull the National League closer to it. And the question that comes to your mind is, when are you going to hang this up? How much longer is in the tank? And Blackmon was like, I don't even know how to reply to this. So that was weird to me, for sure. There was also a question Verducci asked Christian Yelich in the dugout, and it had to do with the numbers that he put up the second half of last year. And the question was prefaced with, the only people who's ever put up these numbers are linked to PEDs. And you can see Yelich look into the camera like, what are we doing here?
What am I supposed to say?
What am I supposed to say? So that to me was very awkward. I also hated, and this is such a small pet peeve, but I was yelling at the TV last night. Beginning of the game, you've got the All-Stars literally taking the field. Joe Buck's introducing the players, and it was cool as a Cub fan. It was cool to see the Cubs getting booed there in Cleveland where they won the World Series a couple years ago. They had a split screen going where the player was on one screen and this cover band playing generic classic rock riffs. Anybody with a guitar who's a little bit of lessons can play, those riffs. Why were they getting any screen time?
Was it anyone? I mean, I didn't watch. I started watching in the second inning.
Yeah.
Me and my fiance got dinner, but
Well, you didn't miss much.
Yeah, well, clearly, was it anybody reputable? I don't know.
You know, it's funny you say that because I caught it right as the National League reserves were being announced.
So
I
it could
missed
have been
the
someone
intro, but it looked like a cover band. I mean, they were not recognizable to me.
I hope it's like somebody like, oh, it was like Blink 182 or something, and you're like, some cover band.
But I'm certain it was a cover band. And then the other thing, pregame, you're in Cleveland, right? The home of rock and roll. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in Cleveland.
I didn't know that.
The guy they had singing the national anthem, some iHeartRadio
guy,
whatever, embarrassing anthem. And I'm thinking, you make all this big deal about you're in Cleveland, home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There has to be a band from the state of Ohio that could have gone up there and done something better than this
Rocked
guy.
it out, yeah.
And it just, I just think about like what a missed opportunity that is. You realize that there's people in suits going, well, let's see, we got to hit this group and this group and this group in terms of we want to get all these different people to watch. Let's find someone who is big in the iHeartRadio crowd. That'll bring in those fans, at least for the national anthem.
Yeah, or advertise this guy as like an iHeartRadio singer.
Just give me someone who can sing it, you know?
Well, I mean, nothing will be as bad as the NBA All-Star game last year.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, back to the Charlie Blackmon thing.
Yeah.
I remember watching that, and I was like, I hadn't been on Twitter while I was watching it, but I was like, man, that's a little weird to me that like because he's only 33, right? And like, for baseball players, that's normal age. But I was like, man, this is so weird. And then I like forgot about it. And then I got on Twitter, and every Rockies Twitter person in the entire like state was like, Joe Buck is like, what is he doing asking Charlie Blackmon that? But I mean, it was, and I don't like Joe Buck to begin with, just because of how he calls football games. I don't think a lot of people do. But I was just like, that's what you had to ask. Like, he just had a historic run of like, numbers that I can't remember the name, but numbers that hadn't been hit since like before the 50s. And like, you're at an all-star game, the pinnacle of a guy's career. And like, oh, when's it time to hang it up? Like assets to CC Sabathia or someone, older and like an old all-star. I didn't get it.
You're spot on. He's 33.
Yeah.
He's in the second year of a 6-year contract extension.
In the prime of his career.
It was so tone deaf.
Yeah.
From Joe Buck that just like, are you even paying attention? Like, are you just going through the motions, showing up, collecting a check, and talking for a couple of hours on TV? Huge missed opportunity. And I thought Blackmon, his reaction was very funny because he's like, I don't even know how to reply to this, or what are you asking me? Just as Christian Yelich's reaction was with the question from Verducci, which was, why are you even, I had this historic season last year, led the Brewers to win the National League Central. Why are you bringing up PED guys? What are you implying? What are you getting at? What do you want me to say to this?
Yeah, that one.
It's not his problem.
That one for me was like a little more personal.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, if that's could be an acceptable question in some settings, like, oh, when are you gonna retire? But like, to say that, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, like, shut the F up, dude.
Yeah.
Like, the only response to that is, well, I'm not. Like, next question.
Yeah, and I like. Players today don't need to answer to whatever had happened 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't have to.
And we're well past the steroid era.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're well past that.
Yeah. And there's a very real criticism of baseball right now, and we certainly saw it Monday night during the Home Run Derby. The balls are clearly juiced.
Yeah.
They're very clearly
Justin
juiced.
Verlander is not crazy, yeah.
Justin Verlander, I would trust. You're talking about Justin Verlander as an elite of the elite. If you're playing in the majors, you're an elite athlete.
I think the difference between Justin Verlander and most people is he sustained success between two different franchises for a very long time. So it's like like CC Sabathia or somebody keeps popping up CC Sabathia, but somebody like that who's seen different franchises. He's been in multiple championship games. So for him to say something like that, at first initially, as a sports fan, when I hear stuff like that, I don't believe it. Kind of like the Deflategate thing. I still don't believe Deflategate had any effect on that game.
Sure.
But for Justin Verlander to say this year it's something he's noticed all year, kind of turned my head. And now that it seems like a lot more people are talking about it. So.
Yeah. And you look at this is the first year that AAA is using the same balls as the majors.
Yeah.
The offense in AAA this year is at historic highs.
Yeah,
we've got evidence hitting you in the face left and right.
Well, and then you got the Twins on pace to break that record. So, but I will say, if there's any good in it, it did make the Home Run Derby really, really fun to watch.
It was entertaining.
I'll say this first, and I've said this before about home run derbies. The guys that wow you in the first round and hit the most never win. And I think, the bracket setup, I like it, but I think it should be changed. I think they could do it some other way to make it more even, because by the time Vladdy hit 69 home runs, he was in the, that's a lot of at-bats. So I think that's why Pete Alonso took it. Because you look at the first round, Pete Alonso had 14 and 20. That's almost half of what Vladdy hit by the championship round. So, and he only won by 1 home run. So,
it was. I like what they've done overall with the home run derby. If you remember back a couple of years ago, you had 10 outs.
Yeah.
So if you swung the bat and it was not a home run, it was an out, it would take a long time to get through the home run derby. Mm-hmm. I like now with the timed rounds and all that. The only thing that maybe you look at changing is what point is the seeding outside of like the first round? Like, just get rid of that.
Well, Christian Yelich was supposed to be the number 1 seed against Vladdy, which he might have competed. I doubt it, but it was kind of like they're lucky Vladdy did something, because it was kind of lackluster to put Matt Chapman in there. Obviously, he's a great third baseman and a good offensive player, but like the 2 number 1s, 1 and 2 are him and Pete Alonso. So it's like, I don't know, just taking Yelich out of it took a little away for me.
Sure. And he was hurt. And he had the injury.
Which, he unavoidable. I get that. I don't know. It's just a little. I would like to see the format changed eventually, right? Because Vladdy should have won, right? I mean, that we can't really argue that. He put on a crazy show. But because of the formatting and all that stuff, he, ended up coming in second. So.
Yeah, and I think the real takeaway too, other than it was an entertaining night. Like if you were just popping in back and forth from watching it, how could you not smile looking at the young talent in baseball right now? That was a real thing that I took away. Whether it's Vlad Jr., Acuna in Atlanta, Alonso in New York, Peterson in L.A., Josh Bell in Pittsburgh. I mean, the game is in such good hands right now, and these guys are characters too. They've got personalities, and how do you not get a smile when you're watching Vlad Jr. up there hitting bombs? Like, if you can't enjoy that, then you're not going to enjoy baseball.
I saw a thing, I don't know if it was on Twitter or something, but it was like, the 2 brightest stars in the NBA and baseball right now are like chubby kids.
Yeah.
Like Vladdy Guerrero and Zion.
Yeah.
It's like the age of the thick boys is coming upon us. So.
They're plenty athletic.
Yeah, I'd say so. It was the thing that I agree with you on is the fact that when you look at like the past home run derbies where it's been like the Joey Votto thing in Cincinnati and with Josh Hamilton, and like the one exciting thing about it is that this is Vladdy's like first year in the majors and he's doing this. So like, I don't think we're gonna have another boring home run derby for a very long time.
No.
On that note, home run derby's over, All-Star game's over. I think we're headed for the trade deadline rush chaos that is upon us. I'm not sure who the biggest buyers or sellers will be, but what players do you think are getting shipped away from their teams?
Well, I think the first thing you do with that is you look at teams and you go, okay, well, is this team going to go for it or are they going to be selling? And that's more and more complicated these days because more teams make the playoffs than ever before. In the American League, 2/3 of the American League right now has a legitimate chance of either winning their division or the wild card. So they're in that playoff hunt. The National League, it's even deeper where you've got, 2 or 3 teams in the National League, maybe 4 total teams in the National League that definitely are not going to be in the playoffs. Everybody else is right there in the middle of it. So take a team like the Cincinnati Reds. They've got an abundance of guys from pitchers, guys in their bullpen, extra outfielder type guys, your Puigs of the world, for example. Well, what do you do with the Reds? They're 4.5 games out of a wild card. They're about the same out of first place of their division. They're in last place in the National League Central, and they're only 4.5 games out of the playoffs. So you got to look at these teams and go, boy, there's talent there, but do they have a chance of winning or not? But certainly you could look at, what do you have in Detroit? Their closer yesterday, Green, had an opportunity to pitch. That's a guy that you certainly look at and go, a team in contention, Detroit is not, is going to want that type of a relief pitcher in the back end of their bullpen. So you got to target those teams, but then look at teams, a team like Oakland has a ton of talent. Are they going to be buyers or sellers here in the next 2 or 3 weeks? Probably buyers.
Yeah.
But we don't know that for sure. So that's going to be what's going to be interesting to see playing out. But a lot of teams are competitive because of the expanded playoffs, and that makes the trade deadline that much more interesting.
Yeah, see, and I think it would be difficult for me to be a baseball GM to make that decision, like the Rockies are one game behind 500. Do we make a run for the playoffs? When, in my mind, right, the way a franchise should be run, which a lot of NBA teams do it like this, is like, are there any moves I can make that will, maybe not put me in playoff contention, but win me a championship? Right? And so, like, with the Rockies and these other teams, the Giants are another team that I think will be sellers, obviously, with Will Smith in their bullpen.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of teams on the fringe, and it's like, for me, I don't think there's any trades out there except for maybe Noah Syndergaard or Trevor Bauer, a starting pitcher, that would really catapult any of these teams into the championship talk. So for me, I think there will be a lot of movement because there always is in baseball. We always freak out because this NBA free agency is hitting like crazy, like never before. But in baseball, the trade deadline's even more crazy. So there's way more player movement. But I think the biggest name we're going to hear, Trevor Bauer has been a name that's been around there for a long time. But I think this is the year and the time that Noah Syndergaard does get traded somewhere, whether it be the Yankees or a National League team. I don't know. But they're going to get a lot for him. And they might deal Zach Wheeler, too. I mean, if you're dealing Noah Syndergaard, you might as well. So we'll see. I mean, it's always fun. I met a couple weeks ago. I met Marcus Stroman.
Yeah, that's right.
And we met at the art museum, which is like super random. Not gonna lie, I totally creeped on his Instagram, saw he was there, and went and found him.
Could have been worse.
But I was like, oh man, Marcus, like, is it bad to say that I wish the Rockies would trade for you? And I don't think he liked that I said that. And he's like, yeah, man, Denver's great, but like blah blah blah. So now I'm like, damn. I said on my podcast a couple weeks ago, the Rockies need to trade for Marcus Stroman. Now I'm like, he doesn't even want to freaking come here. So.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he wants to win. More than anything.
He has in his entire career, unless you count the USA
be careful.
team.
He's got to be careful too about what he can and can't say. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what you had something recording or not.
Yeah.
Toronto is clearly on the up and up. It's just not going to be this year.
Yeah.
Mets,
they have great young talent.
Yeah,
so.
But they would have more young talent if they move a guy like Stroman. If they don't see him fitting into the big picture long term, financially, health-wise, whatever the case may be, that's a guy that you certainly could see moving. I thought you brought up a great point with San Francisco. Madison Bumgarner. What's the point in having him pitch for the Giants in October, right?
Yeah.
In late August or September, when they're 20 games out of first at that point and the season's over. Him pitching for a team like, I'm not saying he's coming to Denver, but him on the Rockies trying to win that first or second wild card spot, that makes a lot more sense. So those are the teams to look at. And, Oakland wasn't the best example I could have given because I do think that they are going to be buyers here down the stretch. But Denver's a really good example of, okay, the Rockies have lost 6 in a row here going into the break. They clearly have a competitive team. They're coming off of 2 playoff appearances. They are a game under 500, and the division's over. So their only hope of getting into the playoffs is going to be taking one of those 2 wild card spots and then rolling the die and seeing if they can get hot in October. And we know that they need bullpen help. We know the Rockies could use really one more hitter and one more starting pitcher if they could. So that's a team that ought to be aggressive. And now what we'll see is, okay, we know the deadline's the end of the month on the 31st. Who is going to be that first team to try to jump the gun? You don't want to wait until the 30th just to make that move, but who's going to maybe get those dominoes to start to fall by making that first move? And it could be the Rockies. They ought to be aggressive right now because their window to win is shrinking. And they certainly, if they could get hot, they can win a couple series in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I agree. Like the Rockies should, and I feel like every time after the All-Star game we have this conversation.
Yeah.
The Rockies should do something. And I mean, who have we traded for the past couple of years? Sungwon Oh and Pat Neshek, right? So nothing crazy, like a couple relievers. And I think, Bumgarner or Stroman, any starting pitcher, like quality starting pitcher, would be great. But history has a tendency to repeat itself. And I don't think Jeff Bradich is going to make any crazy moves. I think I hate to say it, but with this core that we have now in Nolan and, now David Dahl, Trevor Story, I think that with the pitching we have, we will be a perennial first-round team, and get bounced in the first round. So, I don't know. But there's a lot of teams, I think one being the Rays. I think we'll try to, jumble up the trade market just because that division's insane, and the Red Sox are finally, back on track. So
I think just going back to the Rockies too, this is the perfect time to go all in. Mm-hmm. Because you have how many more elite seasons are you going to get out of Charlie Blackmon? Right now, he's going to be around for a while, but
don't go Joe Buck on me.
No, I'm certainly not doing that. But he is at some point into his mid-30s. The numbers are going to come down a little bit. You've got Story, you've got Dahl. A big question too with the Rockies is if Kyle Freeland can figure it out here in the next couple of weeks. That's basically like trading for a top starting pitcher without having to give anybody up. Just by recalling him from AAA, you're adding a legitimate major league starter to a rotation that needs help. That's a huge pick-me-up for a team that obviously is struggling to try to fill his role in the starting rotation and to make that work moving forward. So they kind of have a big move coming, assuming that he can figure it out. All the more reason why I think it's imperative for them to go for it. The big thing for the Rockies, if Nolan gets hurt, which you can't control that.
Yeah.
If he were to get hurt, okay, that messes everything up, and then the season's probably going to get away from them. But you can't bank on that. It's more likely than not that he's going to stay healthy, as he tends to do. Charlie's having a good year again. You don't want to waste that. You don't want to waste those prime years from those guys. And with the season you're getting from Story and Dahl, even Desmond has had a resurgence.
And Tony Walters is hitting over 300.
You got to go for it now. I think if you're Colorado, and as bad as Wade Davis has been, and it has not been a pretty season, at least up to this point, I still trust that guy in the ninth inning of a playoff game.
I can't say I say this. I can't. I can't say I would say the same. Every game I've been to this year, 8 so far, he's pitched and done horribly. Yeah. And I know players, right? Like Wade Davis will have these streaks where they totally suck, but they're still all-star caliber players. But I don't think he's the key to our success, whether he does well or not. I think there are other pitchers in the bullpen that will be fine. I think the thing that's killing us is we have the worst ERA of starting pitchers in the league. Yep. So if it did so happen to have Kyle Freeland come back and pitch amazingly, that would be great. But again, to have another guy behind him, right? There's just after 1 and 2, right? It falls off so hard with talent and production that I think that's the only answer. And I think having the worst ERA in the National League, for starting pitch, that screams it to you. You know what I mean? So if this isn't the year that we go all in, I don't know what constitutes going all in ever. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. But yeah, lots of fun home run derby stuff. All-Star game was fun. I'm ready to get back to baseball.
No doubt.
I'm ready to be able to turn on some random game at noon and just watch baseball all day.
Well, today's Wednesday when we're filming this. This has to be the worst sports day of the year.
It sucks.
There's nothing today.
There's G League games. Croatia is playing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But it's just that day where there is obviously football, nothing going on.
Well, the supplemental draft was today.
Okay.
But you're right.
You know what I mean, though? Like tonight, you get home tonight, you want to put on the TV maybe after work, put on a ball game.
Yep. Nothing.
Good luck.
Yeah. Well, and it's, when basketball is over, it's we have this long stretch. And I know you're a baseball guy.
Yeah.
I know that you're number one. But, having baseball all summer by itself can get a little dry. And honestly, I will tell you, I don't know why, but every time the All-Star game happens, I'm like, man, I cannot wait for baseball to come back on.
Yeah.
Even though I was just man, I'm so tired of watching baseball games. But yeah, it'll be exciting. I love the trade tidal wave that hits the MLB, which is about to be upon us. But we will have plenty of conversation on that in the next couple weeks. But yeah, that's all we have for today. Good baseball talk. Mm-hmm. It's always nice having you on the show. But yeah, go follow us on Twitter, guys, at Coffin Corner Met. And you can find us on Facebook at Coffin Corner Podcast. Also, check out mymetmedia.com. It's where we have all of our podcasts and stuff like that. So, yeah, we will see you guys next week.